Thanks, Lynn, and welcome and good morning to everybody. For the people that I haven't met yet, I'm Rosemary Sinclair and I'm the CEO of Energy Consumers Australia. Welcome to this morning's seminar and thank you for being variously part of our power shift work and interested in our power shift work. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the country on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. As Lynn said, it's important to start by recognising the role of the Australian Government, which funded Power Shift. And we've got Ginny and James White here with us today. James is going to provide some reflections from their perspective on the program after the panel session. In the audience, I see many colleagues of Energy Consumers Australia and friends of Power Shift, researchers, advocates, government agencies and community groups who make up the remarkable community that has coalesced around this work. I say friends in the mode of the Friends of the ABC, a feisty group of people with passionate interest in performance and outcomes to achieve important objectives. We needed these friends at many points along this journey, and we will need you to stay focused so that we get full value from Power Shift for the people who look to all of us for better energy outcomes in their lives. Lynn Gallagher and Kerry Connors at Energy Consumers Australia have lived and breathed Power Shift over the last 3 years and deserve to be singled out for their ambition and perseverance. And we're going to do that now. So They are now very determined, let me tell you, to see the Power Shift messages taken into every decision being made by energy sector leaders, to pivot the sector to outcomes for consumers, not compliance with processes. Power Shift for Lynn and Kerry has never been just about finding the incremental improvement. It's always been about going to the absolute heart of the research, to find ways to address the major affordability and transition challenges by focusing on how to communicate to empower consumers. They are on a mission to find and replace, educate with empower. You've seen them in action, and my advice is don't get in the way. Today's forum is an opportunity to mark an important milestone as we've come to the end of the Australian Government grant that made the research phase of Power Shift possible. In coming weeks, we'll publish the final report. But while we've come to the end of the research phase, we have certainly not come to the end of the Power Shift agenda. That is why today is all about pointing to the way forward and sharing with you our ambition for Power Shift insights, Power Shift practice and Power Shift relationships. Kerry's going to attempt the impossible and synthesise 3 years of work in 10 short minutes. Following Kerry will be a panel session chaired by Lynn, where, given the calibre of the people, no special or additional magic will be required to get your full attention on the power of Power Shift. And then, as foreshadowed, we'll hear from James. What I'd like to do is talk about the significance of Power Shift as we see it. And that is that Power Shift is a vehicle for change. I want to make the important point that through Power Shift, we haven't, in a sense, discovered fire, but what we have discovered is how to read and fan the flames of progress. This is a project that provided a focal point for the extraordinary but unreported and underappreciated work of a range of people and organisations who for many years have been finding ways to transform energy outcomes for people across the country. The start point was the Low-Income Energy Efficiency Program, which tapped into the accumulated and deep expertise of the energy efficiency community through case studies that drew on the lived experience of low-income consumers and their use and management of energy. The diverse panel that Lynn will chair reflects the synthesising and catalysing power of the work that followed the Low-Income Energy Efficiency Program, affectionately known as LEAP, and that work became power shift. And the power shift that we're talking about, of course, is the power shift to consumers. The panel will comprise of Marianne Lowry from ACIL Allen. Marianne reflects the expertise and commitment of a major international consultancy firm. Chris Black from 89 Degrees East brings experience working with governments and others to connect with mass audiences on matters of public interest. Jason Cox from the Australian Energy Foundation, which is an organisation fusing the transition to zero carbon society and equity through practical solutions. Professor Neil Horrocks, and in a way, I'm glad Neil is not here, and if you just lock that door, James, until I've finished, I want to say this. Neil Horrocks comes to us as a professor at the University of Queensland, and his ability to apply research in the most sophisticated but nonetheless practical way makes him, in my opinion, nothing short of a national treasure. Moving mountains of policy making is Neil's core skill. So what has Power Shift taught us? If the fire was already burning, what did we read in the flames? What do the experiences of the more than 20,000 people who participated in the 20 LEAP trials tell us about how energy efficiency can work for consumers on low incomes or in other circumstances that make them vulnerable to the size of their energy bill? The language is very important. The circumstances people find themselves in create the vulnerabilities. But you can't manage your life without electricity. Can you really choose not to have lighting, heating, and refrigeration for food safety? We do much work with the sector to make energy affordable. Power Shift is the work we have done with and for consumers to help them with their decisions about energy. If we can bring the two together, we will have a power shift of enormous significance. Find and replace, educate with empower. Kerry will elaborate, but on our reading, there are three messages in the flames of people's experiences with energy decisions. Firstly, meet people where they are. Go beyond the process of the quarterly paper bill and one size fits all to empowering consumers with individualised, tailored services and support. Design for diversity. Recognise difference in terms of climate zones, housing stock and household circumstances and needs, and develop a range of options that empower people. And thirdly, build and create trust to partner with consumers, rejecting the narrative that consumers don't care and aren't interested, which is code for consumers are stupid and lazy, when in fact they are confused and busy. Three messages which at their core are about putting the power in the hands of consumers, not just to use less energy as a further penalty for circumstance, but to manage their own use and costs and be empowered as valuable partners in the energy system. Three messages which do not just deliver emissions reductions, as was the original premise of LEAP, but profound benefits for the health and well-being of people and communities. We're no longer solving the problem for consumers, but with them. The three messages that Power Shift shows all of us are that it is not just effective and possible, but should be our baseline expectation about communicating with consumers on the range of energy decisions they have to make. This is the true significance of Power Shift. It's about resetting expectations. This true significance is only revealed when you hold Power Shift up next to the old energy paradigm, a paradigm where poor and persistent energy outcomes for some is inevitable and unavoidable, where thinking about outcomes for people on low incomes and with vulnerabilities was confined to a safety net comprising a standing offer, which is now being re-established through the default market offer, hardship schemes and bill concessions, critically important measures, but short of a structural service-based and long-term solution. That has been viewed as unrealistic and for some unnecessary, if only consumers would play their proper role. Turns out they're not empowered to play their proper role, which is to be partners in the energy system. The narrative in the minds of some goes this way. People only engage with energy companies for 12 minutes a year. We have trouble encouraging them to switch, even when there are hundreds of dollars on the table. How could we possibly contemplate the idea that they would use information and tools to take control? I would say that projects like Reduce Your Juice, that Neil was instrumental in designing, have busted that myth forever. Power Shift shows people can engage and they are motivated to engage. And it hasn't just done that, it has also shown how new technologies and new approaches, if designed to work for people, reflecting their different needs, can create real value for all households and small businesses. If you follow the logic of Power Shift, you find yourself contemplating a very new and different market, where value is as much a function of consumer trust in individualised services as it is in the scale economics of massive infrastructure. We have this new information about consumers at the very time, of course, that the Energy Security Board is consulting widely on what the market will look like after 2025. Where do I think industry is up to on this journey? I've spent the last few days listening to the audio recordings of the meetings between the CEOs of the Energy Charter signatory companies and the Independent Accountability Panel. They are publicly available, and I would commend them to you, because what you hear directly is the CEOs grappling with issues about how to connect with customers, how to win their trust, how to position their businesses in a transitioning market, how to develop new products and services that meet people where they are. We know the findings of the Power Shift Research and Communications Project can help with this work. Let me finish by saying that the ideas at the heart of Power Shift are ideas whose time has come. Find and replace, educate with empower. Thank you again for joining us today, and I look very much forward to the discussion. Now hand to Kerry for her summary presentation.